You are watching a medical drama. Someone is running down a hallway shouting for a crash cart. Your chest tightens. You think, I could do that. But the real answer is far stranger. Becoming a doctor is not a career choice. It is a 10-year rebuilding of who you are, cell by cell, habit by habit. It starts long before anyone puts a stethoscope around your neck. It starts with forgetting. Your brain forgets almost everything you learn within a day. In the 1880s, a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus tested this on himself. He memorized nonsense syllables and tracked how fast they slipped away. Within 24 hours, most of it was gone. He called it the forgetting curve. Every med student alive today is fighting that curve, whether they know his name or not. So how do you beat a curve built into the architecture of memory itself? You do not fight it once. You fight it on a schedule. Review today, review in 3 days, review in a week, review in a month. Spaced repetition is not a study hack. It is a truce with your own biology. Medical students who master this rhythm are not smarter than the ones who fail out. They are just harder to forget. But memorizing facts is only the entry fee. The real transformation happens somewhere else. Go back further. 200 years ago, becoming a doctor looked nothing like it does now. There were no standardized exams. There was no MCT. You apprenticed under a physician, watched him work, mixed his tinctures, and eventually called yourself a doctor too. Some of these physicians never opened a cadaver. Some believed illness came from an imbalance of 4 bodily fluids. People died from ideas that sounded confident. Then, in 1910, a schoolteacher named Abraham Flexner walked into nearly every medical school in North America and wrote a report that burned half of them to the ground. He found schools with no laboratories, no science requirements, diplomas sold for tuition. His report forced medicine to become a science before it could remain a profession. The path you picture today, 4 years of undergraduate study, an entrance exam, 4 years of medical school, then years of residency, exists because one man's report humiliated an entire industry into rigor. You don't see that history when you picture a doctor. You just see the white coat. But the white coat is newer than you think, and it was never about the coat. Here is the part almost nobody tells you. Medical schools are not looking for the smartest applicants in the room. They already assume you're smart. What they are actually testing for is whether you can survive. A psychologist named Angela Duckworth spent years studying who finishes brutal, multi-year challenges and who quits partway through. She found that raw talent barely predicted who made it to the end. What predicted it was a trait she called grit, a sustained obsession with a single goal across years of boredom, failure, and fatigue. Medical school admissions committees are not reading your grades. They are reading your grit. Why does grit matter so much more than talent here? Because the work is repetitive to the point of numbing. You will memorize the same muscle insertion points until they stop meaning anything. You will get quizzed at 6 in the morning by a resident who slept 4 hours and wants you to suffer the way she suffered. You will fail a practice exam and have 30 seconds to recover before the next patient walks in. Nobody warns you that the hardest exam in medicine is not written. It is endurance, disguised as curriculum, and your body pays for it before your mind does. A psychologist named Christina Maslach spent decades studying a very specific kind of exhaustion, one that doesn't come from working too little but from caring too much for too long without recovery. She named it burnout. It shows up as emotional numbness, cynicism, a creeping sense that nothing you do matters. Studies on medical residents have found burnout rates far higher than the general working population, sometimes affecting more than half of trainees during their hardest rotations. This is not a personal failure. It is a predictable cost of the system itself. So why does anyone keep going? Watch a white coat ceremony sometime. New medical students, barely out of undergrad, stand in a room while faculty drape a short white coat over their shoulders. It looks ceremonial, almost old-fashioned. But rituals like this exist for a reason older than medicine itself. Anthropologists have long noted that humans use ritual to mark identity change, a before and an after, a line you cannot uncross. The coat is not clothing. It is a signal to your own brain that you are now someone different than you were yesterday. That identity shift matters more than any textbook, because willpower runs out. Identity does not. A person trying to survive residency on willpower alone will burn out by year 2. A person who has rebuilt their sense of self around being a healer will find a way to get up at 4 in the morning anyway. Not because they want to, but because that is simply who they are now. Here is the twist almost nobody expects. The years of memorizing anatomy, the exams, the residency hours that stretch past humane limits, none of it is really testing your intelligence. It is testing whether repeated small acts of discipline can rewire a person's entire identity. Deliberate, unglamorous repetition, done consistently over years, done even when it feels pointless, is the actual mechanism of transformation. A researcher named Anders Ericsson spent his career studying elite performers, from violinists to chess grandmasters, and found the same pattern again and again. Expertise was never about raw gift, It was about thousands of hours of focused, corrected, uncomfortable practice. That is what a hospital corridor is really training, not facts. Reflexes built from repetition, until calm becomes automatic under pressure that would flatten anyone else. So when you watch that person sprinting down the hallway with the crash cart, you are not watching genius. You are watching 10 years of forgetting curves defeated one flashcard at a time. 10 years of grit outlasting exhaustion. 10 years of a white coat slowly becoming skin instead of costume. And here is where it turns back toward you. You probably are not becoming a doctor, but you are trying to become something. A better version of your work. A skill you keep almost quitting. A version of yourself you haven't fully earned yet. The same forces are already acting on you, whether you notice them or not. Your memory is already forgetting what you learned yesterday unless you revisit it. Your motivation is already draining unless something deeper than willpower is holding it up. Every big transformation, in medicine or anywhere else, runs on the same quiet machinery. Repetition your brain cannot ignore, and an identity strong enough to survive the boredom in between. You are watching a medical drama. Someone is running down a hallway shouting for a crash cart. Your chest tightens. You think I could never do that. But the real answer is far stranger. You already are.